going here. All right, everybody. Today I'm excited to have Andrew Funderberg. Funderberg, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I keep saying Fundenberg for some reason. Funderberg, the founder of Fundy, on the podcast. I had the opportunity to meet Andrew at WPPI in Las Vegas, and man, I wish I met him years ago. We've used Fundy for our album designs in our business, but the updates that they have done and everything that they're doing with their platform, I was telling him right before the podcast, as soon as I came home, I started using Fundy for sales. And it is just, it's an amazing tool for doing sales, for you're doing in-person sales. Andrew, I'm so excited to dive into what Fundy does and how it can help people with sales. And I thank you so much for being on here today.
Well, thanks for having me, John. It's a blast. I love helping people. I love when people have success with the platform and, they get as excited as we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, you saw me. You probably remember, like at you were in a graphy studio room doing a little talk about Fundy, and the more and more you showed, the more and more I was cursing, like out loud. I was like, "What the f did I do all these years
Yeah,
using
yeah.
somebody
Let's be
else?"
clear. You were not cursing at me.
No, no, I was not cursing at you. I was cursing myself. I mean, I could have saved so much money and so much time and so much energy and all this other stuff that goes along with things. I was like, why did I not use this platform more? But I literally walked, I had sales, I think a day or two after I came back from WPPI, and I was like, I'm just going to go dive right into it. And I would
Yeah.
tell my clients from the beginning, I'm like, this is a new platform, so if I'm having trouble with some different stuff, I'm pretty good with technology, and so I could figure it out. But there were some tools that we've talked about that it's just like, oh, it doesn't do the same thing as it did with my other platform. But anyway, we'll get into those kind of things later. So tell
Yeah.
me, first of all, how did this all transpire for you? How, like, were you a photographer? I don't know a lot about your background,
Oh,
so
okay.
tell me a little bit about how did you get into Fundy and what this technology platform for sales.
Yeah. So I have a degree in literature from the University of Oregon, and then
I
I
have a
went into
degree
the
in history, so there
yeah,
you go.
exactly. Yeah. Those useful degrees lead you to different careers. And
Right.
then I went into the Peace Corps, and then I got back from the Peace Corps, and surprise, surprise, I was unemployable. So I had a buddy that was working in Japan teaching English, convinced me to go over there. So went to Japan, lived in Japan for 13 years, had kids, and when I had my kids, it was right when DSLRs were coming out. Like the my first DSLR was the Nikon D100,
Okay.
and I got that to take pictures of kids. And then it was also when wedding photography was starting to blossom, and so I actually started shooting weddings in Japan.
All right.
And I lived in the countryside, so I'd like this is super white photographer would show up at these Japanese weddings, and like everybody's like, what the heck is going on here? And at that time, and it's still a little bit true today, like everything was based on templates as if they were, back in the day, you would do a wedding album, you would order a mat, and like this mat would have two 5x7 holes in it, right? And then you'd stick the 5x7 photos. And that's pretty much how the digital photo software worked for designing albums back in the day. And so I created some Photoshop actions and scripts with the help of some random developer in Russia somewhere I paid, $1,000 to. Um, that would basically it was like, hey, I'm going to define this area, and I'm going to select some photos in Bridge, and I'm going to say, hey, fill this area with these photos, right? So I viewed everything as a math problem. I'd always been really good at math, even though I got a degree in literature for some stupid reason. Um, and so it was like, hey, we
Sounded
have
good at the time, right?
not good at well, it was, I'm telling you, those lit classes were a lot easier than the math classes. calculus calculus almost crushed me.
Nice.
um and then so basically it was like, hey, we have an area on a page, and I have a random selection of horizontal and vertical photos. I just want the edges to line up and fill as much space as possible, right? And so that's how it began, and kind of grew that those actions and scripts, and then introduced the desktop version in 2014, and then in 2000 I believe 16 or 17 introduced the full auto design of an album. And we use this very sophisticated algorithm, um, because you can't, like, if you go auto design on a lot of, consumer or even prosumer like websites, they'll have an auto design, but it doesn't split up stuff correctly.
No.
It's like
No.
just
Well, I mean,
random.
you get like I know there's a new tool out there. I haven't
Yeah.
used it yet, but like there's tools for like headshots and stuff where it's like,
Yeah.
hey, you put the headshot and it's supposed to center it, but then usually it's like
Yeah.
it's off the side and it's like half your head's cut off and everything,
Yeah.
but there's never a perfect tool for those things, it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so we had the auto design, and then with the drop zones, being able to, swap a vertical and a horizontal photo without having to redesign or choose a new template, being able to just grab in between the photos and adjust those croppings at the same time. So, how do we give as much automation as possible without giving up control? Because that's like it's easy to build automated tools if you just take away all the control.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah,
like
but
the
you
like
still want to
go
be able to, as a creative or as a
yeah,
photographer, have a little bit, oh, I got to move this here and move that there.
yeah,
That's not how I meant to shoot that photo that way for that
yeah,
reason. So I want it to
yeah.
show up that way.
Yeah. So that's kind of the journey. And then and then we started introducing the IPS tools and working with photographers, helping them upsell albums and wall art and cards and the full meal deal. And some photographers, like, you're friends with Jason Marino and stuff. And like there's a lot of photographers, Sean Black, that make almost $250,000 extra just with,
Right, right. Yeah,
album
I
and
mean,
wall
I've
art
already
sales with
seen
Fundy
it.
Designer.
Yeah, I've already seen so my just to take you through a little
Yeah.
progression of what I did before. What I was using, I was just showing individual photos in the slideshow when
Yeah.
clients came in and all that stuff. But if you shoot like 80 photos or something like that in a session, 80 photos, one, you have to cull it down even more once you get into the designer to just show those, show 30 or 40, because
Yeah.
after that it gets kind of boring and kind of
Hmm.
repetitive and kind of, bland. And it's a 5, 6 minute slideshow and nobody wants to
Yeah.
sit through a slide. Even if they love the photos, that you could see it in their faces. They're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, I'm kind of bored now.
Yeah.
But what I loved immediately when I moved over to Fundy, and I know you guys had the version 11 that you just
Mm.
launched. I think it was during what was it?
Imaging. Yeah.
Imaging, yes.
Yeah.
And that completely blew my mind what you guys did. And then when I actually sat down with somebody like yourself and they showed me how it kind of worked a little bit more, then I was like, oh my God. Like it takes me the longest thing it takes me to get a slideshow ready is the import of the photos. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
I
you
mean,
click a button and then you can go grab your cup of coffee and come
yeah,
back and
no,
then it's
like I
done,
mean, but
right?
it's not. And when I say that, it's not taking me minutes or hours
Yeah.
or anything
Yeah.
like that. But it's just like I put the file, or like what I want to call the file. I
Yeah.
import the photos. That takes like a minute or two, depending on how long my photos are. But then the design of the album wall art or whatever I want to do takes me 30 seconds, and I'm ready to show a slideshow. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like that's how fast it was. But at our old designer, we'd have to do it. We'd have to create new like wall art and
Hmm.
and
It's a whole
and
thing. Yeah.
and if you had 80 photos, you could only do individual photos for the slideshow. And I had to go and like, well, let's take, half of these photos out. And it was
Hmm.
just, it was an ordeal, and it would take 10 minutes just to get where I wanted to go for a sales session. But what I've done is I've just basically, I know you can do wall art and all that kind of stuff, but I've
Yeah.
just taken and made an album, and
Hmm.
I'm just showing them basically an album. And I've had two times since I've done this. And I mean, WPPI was what, 2 months ago? Not even.
Yeah.
I've had two people at the end of the slideshow go, "Oh, I want your highest package with the full album.
Yeah.
I liked everything that you
Yeah.
showed
Yeah.
me there."
Done.
I'm like,
Yep.
"Okay, cool."
Yeah. And I think to slow down, I think this is really important. And I believe we are still the only program that where you can do a direct slideshow of an album design, wall art designs without doing some sort of like export and re-import or something like that. And we did it with intention, right? I've worked in sales before, and the golden rule is show what you want to sell.
Right.
Like that's one of the golden rules, show what you want to sell. And if you're showing individual images, then people want individual images.
Right.
If you show an album design and wall art design, then people want an album design and wall art design. So yeah, in the slideshow, you just click the button, add album, add wall art,
100%. Yeah,
add a
and
title.
it made me kind of look back, and I changed my pricing. I
Yeah.
changed up I modified my pricing to be more album centric. I mean, I've been playing around with some different things and
Mhm.
trying some different sales techniques with using Fundy, because it's a new tool, and it's like amazing what I'm able to do with it in that capacity. But
Yeah.
and I haven't settled in 100% on this is okay, this is the right thing that works. But
Yeah.
I can see already that showing an album really helps. Now, if you're only showing 20, 30 photos, then maybe albums aren't the
Yeah.
best thing for you because it's going to be really short, and maybe individual items or something like that is more what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Or you can do
it's
wall art collections, right? You
yeah,
could
yeah,
show
but you
like
have the
10
wall
wall art
art and all that
collections.
kind
Yeah.
of stuff too, and in everything. But so Fundy has so many things that it can do for photographers with sales. What are some of the key features that Fundy offers? I know we've talked about a couple of them
Yeah.
that can help photographers when it comes to sales. I know we talked about albums, but like talk a
Mhm.
little bit more too about the wall art side of things.
Yeah, and so if people haven't used the new version yet, we tried to make it as simple as possible for both expert and absolute beginners have success. So import your photos, one click, retouch the photos in like 2 seconds, and then one click, design an album, design some wall art collections. We have a pre-baked set that will auto design, but we also have a set called designs that sell,
Mm-hmm.
and those are based off of just your basic 16 by 20, 20 by 30
Well,
canvas
you
sizes.
also work with different labs. Like I'm a Graphy
Yeah.
Studio person,
Yeah.
and you have all of the Graphy Steve Saporito collections and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff
Yeah.
that's pre already made. You
Correct.
just
Yeah.
have to plug in your photos.
Yeah. So you can choose those collections and it will just auto design 12, 20 rooms for you,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
With the photos. And for wall art, it is really powerful. As you can say, for example, for album, use all the photos, but for wall art, only use the 5-star photos,
Mm. Yep.
right? So, like if, and more of the close, basically more of the photos that would look better on the wall. And then, a powerful tool for wall art. Everyone has a different technique. What I like to do with wall art when you're selling wall art is first get the client to decide on what collection they like,
Mm-hmm.
and as in the arrangement,
Mm-hmm.
and then say, okay, so here we have this arrangement you like. Do you want to swap any of the photos out? Right. And then we're concentrating on the photos and getting the actual 5 photos, for example, that go in that collection. And then a lot of people will do collections like this. Mark Rosetto, Steve Saporito, the designs that sell collections where you have a collection that's fundamentally the same, but there's like a small, medium, large,
Right.
right? And then you can have them, take a photo with their iPhone of their living room and send it over and say, okay, we've decided the collection, we've decided what photos you want. Now let's decide the size that look best in your living room.
Right. Right.
Almost all the time it's the large, right? Because like putting photos above a sofa, like
Yeah. Yeah.
like that collection has
Yeah.
to be
We have
big,
a
otherwise it
20 by
looks
20 for
dumb.
economic purposes, and I always show it
Exactly.
to him and say, "This, I had it happen just Saturday or whatever."
Yep.
I was like, "Here's what a 2020 looks like above a standard couch." And she goes, "Oh,
Yep.
it's really small." I'm like, "Yeah, it's basically a postage stamp." Here's a
Yep.
30 by 30. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay, cool. Let's
Exactly.
go with a 30 by 30. I'll spend a little bit more for it to make more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And
um,
then it will also auto design cards. So, for example, if you're doing family photos, you can save out your collection of holiday cards. We have a bunch of templates in there. And then just by accident, your logo and website is on the back of every single card that they send out to their friends and family, right?
yeah.
Or thank you cards for weddings or save the date cards for engagements, right? So, what we've tried to do is not only help with that saving time through design and making more money, but creating assets that can help in marketing to future clients. off of your current
Yeah,
clients.
yeah, I haven't gotten there yet with the cards, but I know I want to get there. I'm just trying, like I said, I'm trying to kind of
Yeah.
get my feet on the ground with how I'm doing it. And then once I get there, especially because we're starting to do some more senior photos, that's how I started.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm getting back into the senior photo thing because my oldest daughter is going to be a senior next year.
Yeah.
Perfect time to get
Yeah.
some
I saw your
organic.
photos of her. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Super
so
cute. Yeah.
perfect time to get some organic
Yep.
marketing from her
Yeah.
friends. I'm very involved in the school. But more so, I liked doing that kind of stuff. I just got away from it when we opened our studio because I really didn't need it.
Yep.
But it's another avenue that I enjoy.
Hmm.
And I mean, my wife and they're opening up another high school right down the street from us. I have 8 high schools that are about to be open in our area with about 800 to 900 seniors in each school
Yep.
within 5 miles of my house. And
Yep.
so, you're talking 7,000 marketable seniors that you can go to just
Yeah.
in five
Totally.
miles from your house.
Yep.
Why aren't you doing this?
Yep.
But yeah, the
So you're
cards
gonna
are really
like.
good for something like that because, like, if you have
Yep.
an ambassador program or something, you can put some of their photos and they can pass those out and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. And then the thing to remember with cards, especially for seniors, is that cards are for the mom, right? The kids aren't going to carry them around. Cards for the moms to share among moms,
no,
right?
totally,
Because the
totally.
moms pay. And then you're gonna like this. This update's probably gonna come out within the next 3 to 4-ish weeks. Is you'll be able to upload with a click any slideshow that you create in Fundy Designer,
Nice,
and
nice.
we'll have unlimited slideshow hosting.
That's
And so
awesome.
that'll be great for the kids to share. So each time there's a slideshow, there's a little share link, and they can click the link and then
Nice,
share among their
nice.
friends. So they can give them a digital way to show all of their photos without actually giving their digital photos away.
And so that's another thing, like you had talked about, and it's on the early stages of things. You've demonstrated a few things at
Yeah,
WPPI with this, but it's just like the ability that you guys we live in a digital world where
yeah,
social media and TikTok and
yeah,
Instagram and whatever is where you want your content to be. And you're
hmm
making tools that make it easy for photographers to just do
yeah.
what
We
they're already
have,
doing and then just upload that or download that and put it on
yeah,
their whatever.
yeah,
And that is incredible, because it
yeah,
makes it really easy for us. We don't have to go to,
yeah.
another tool to go and do all those like CapCut or whatever. And then it's like, hey, I got to
Exactly.
do it all in here. And then I got to move it over
Yep.
here. And then it's like saves me so much time and energy for,
Yeah,
for
yeah. So
doing those social media things.
that's the social design app, which comes free with the subscription, and you can design, you know, basically it's like Fundy album design for social media for your Instagram carousels, and then it'll also do instant slideshows for you that
Yeah.
you can, give to your clients. So that's fun. One thing with the wall art, also, if you're, most people are just doing sales over Zoom, but if you have a studio, you can hook it up to a projector and you could project it actual size on the wall,
Mhm.
through the wall art. And then, we have a client pricing section, which, print pricing and collection pricing is really straightforward, but the album pricing section is really great because it's dynamic. You can set, let's say your album is $1,000 for the first 10 pages, and every page after that is $50, or every photo after that is $50. So that then when you're sitting with the client, you just click add the album to the order, and it will do the math for you.
Oh, that's cool.
Because as photographers, we're somewhat mathematically challenged at times, especially when we're sitting in front of people.
Yeah, my invoicing tool is great, especially when it comes to like sales tax. I'm like, they'll ask me, well, what is it with sales? I'm like, well, let me put it in my invoice because it'll
Yeah,
calculate it all for me because
yeah,
I have no clue.
exactly. Yeah. So the
um,
Fundy invoice tool will do all that for you, all the sales taxes and the math and everything for you.
So fun story, like shortly after I came back talking about the wall art and kind of reiterating what you're saying and
Yeah.
from an example, like that's one of the nice things I love about doing a podcast like this is talking to people like you, but like I'm actually implementing some of these things within
Yeah.
my own business and stuff. But I had a client come in, they said that they wanted a four photo wall art collection. They
Hmm.
came in with their dog and their family and all that stuff. Their dog's really old, and everything, but they saw some different wall art designs in my studio and they're like, I really liked this. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
cool. So let's start with that. And they were very specific on what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so we did exactly what you said. We designed what we wanted. We put the photos in where we wanted them and put sizes to it based on what we thought the right size would be.
Hmm.
But then what was awesome is at the end, mom was like, because it was mom and her two daughters, like
Yeah.
in the sales session, and they were older kids, and so they were like, hey, how do we like? I want to see what it's going to look like in this space. I'm like, well, go take a quick picture of it. And so they went and took a picture of it,
Yeah.
sent it to me. I couldn't believe how fast and easy it was because like I told him, I said, here, work with me. I've not done this
Yeah.
yet, but I know you can.
Yeah.
Send me the photo. I'm going to put the photo in here and then we're going to figure out. And it took me like no time at all to drag the photo in, measure it. Like they said, this piece that's on there is like 30 inches across. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Measured that, put the wall art piece inside of there. And it was a little small. And so they were like, I mean, and it was a pretty nice sized piece, but they wanted
Yeah.
something big. They wanted
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
really grand, right? And so what was great is I just took that wall art piece and then just dragged it bigger until it was to the right sizes that they
Yeah.
wanted to be. And then we just adjusted the individual pieces to kind of
Hmm.
make sense for the design. But
Yeah.
it didn't take much time to do that, right? And it was really simple. And I was able to upgrade in that sense because now it's really fitting the space that they
Yeah.
wanted instead of like,
Yeah.
hey, here's this little, like, it wasn't tiny, but it was like tiny compared to what they wanted. But because they got something bigger, I got to charge
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So, and that's what I try to tell people is like, for people out there, subscribing to it, that one single upgrade from a smaller size to a larger size probably paid for the subscription for the entire year.
Oh,
Like just
totally.
not the wholesale, just that difference from like the medium size to the big size, right?
Right, right. No, totally. Or like just even the album side of things, I
Yeah.
mean, you go from, okay, well, my minimum album is X amount of photos with X amount of pages. Okay, well, you've got we went through and culled through your photos and you have 60 photos and you want to get to
Yeah.
the minimum, we can do that, but it's easy to upgrade in that sense because you're like, hey, this is how many photos you have. But there's so
Yeah.
many ways. But and I will say, price point wise, I'll brag for you guys on that.
Yeah.
Like what I pay for 1 year of Fundy is a fraction of what I pay even when I had because I had a team of people and
Yeah.
each had to have their own license with the other thing that I was using. And
Yeah.
so I was paying just as much per month as it was
Yeah.
for 1 year of Fundy. So, and it is well worth the money. So, bravo to that. I hope you
Oh,
can
thanks.
keep
Yeah,
the
we try to
pricing
make it.
consistent
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. We try to make it a no-brainer for people,
No,
right?
no, I get it. I get it. So, I mean, Fundy like has so many things that you can do as a photographer when it comes to sales.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's really geared towards people that are doing in-person sales or Zoom in-person sales. Like
Yeah.
we do all of our sales over Zoom, but it's still in person.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you would, what's some advice that somebody that's like never done that? You're a shoot and burn photographer, you're a
Yeah.
person that's never ever done in-person sales. You're trying to make that jump to a place like with Fundy.
Yeah.
Where do I start? Like, what do I do? So I'm
Yeah.
not feeling
That's a
overwhelmed.
good question. We get that question a lot. We actually purchased a URL. It's 50kextra.com, 50kextra.com, because that's on average what people make with using Fundy. And it's got like the step-by-step, like where do I start? So 50kextra.com, things like just add some photos of albums to your website. And when you're in the wall art section, design some mock-ups and you can export that wall art preview as
Mhm.
just a JPEG, throw it up on your website so your clients can see, potential clients can be like, oh, this is what wall art looks like above a sofa.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing is, just start off by designing, use the one-click auto design, tweak it a little bit, don't overthink it, and then uh, show clients the slideshow. Like the slideshow's super easy to create. The online proofing site, some people that are shy to start off with an actual in-person or over Zoom, one click, upload an album and some wall art to the online proofer and you send a link to your client. How's this?
Yeah.
right? And they can go through and look through it. I've talked to a number of people that have made big sales just by sending those links over. They're like, "Oh yeah, I like room number 3 and I love the album. All good. Let's do that."
Nice. Love it. I mean, my advice to piggyback on what you would say, like what I've learned in sales is keep it simple until you start feeling comfortable with, like, if it's just albums you want to do, then just focus on albums. If it's wall art you
Yep.
want to do, focus on the wall art, but don't overcomplicate it, because then it overcomplicates it for you, which overcomplicates it for your client. And when you're not
Yeah.
comfortable doing it in the first place, you're you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to go back to what you were doing before that's not really making you any money. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you're like going to get frustrated. But
Yeah.
my experience, like I said, to start off, was like, if you, with Fundy specifically, if you start off with albums, like, the thing that I think is a good selling point too for albums is, people get more bang for their buck, in my opinion, because you can,
Yep.
depending on how you price yourself, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But like, I tell people, like, if you get this portrait box, it's more expensive per photo because it's a dynamic thing. You can
Yeah.
frame these, you can keep them in the box, you can do a lot more with it. And an album, it's static. You can't
Mhm.
do anything with it once it's in the album, but you get more photos,
Yeah.
so, like, and the cost of goods between the two of them, generally speaking, are it's cheaper to do an album overall
Mhm.
versus, like the
Yeah.
portrait box, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's a good sales way of showing, hey, most people value photos. They don't value
Mhm.
like the physical products that we offer. They want more photos. So albums are a great way to do that. And I know,
Yeah.
like, on wedding people, like, wedding people, who was it that was at the Australian, I'm losing my, he was at WPPI speaking about, wedding sales, wedding albums.
Ben Connolly?
Ben, yes, Ben
Yeah, yeah.
Conley.
Yeah.
And the way he goes about doing wedding albums is just amazing. Like, you're actually getting rid of a spread, not a photo. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Mhm.
I like
Yeah.
one photo out of that spread. Well, if you get rid of that spread, you get rid of that photo, and then they'll be
Yeah.
like, well, I'll keep the spread,
Yeah.
and so, but that's a technique of keeping people engaged and wanting to buy that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So yeah, I love keeping it simple, doing those kind of things, that really help. Talk about, like, what kind of, support does somebody have when they're using your platform, to try and, like, I'm learning this and I'm new and I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Well, I think that's one place where we shine as a company. We have, our support ratings are usually like 96, 97% happy customer satisfaction when they contact our support team. We use a platform called Zendesk for support, which is pretty standard in the tech industry, and we're in the top 90th percentile as far as speed returning, getting back to people.
Yeah, you are.
Um, so yeah, we guarantee within one business day, and usually, if it's within business hours, it's like an hour somebody to
What
get back
what
to
I
you.
love too is you guys have, like, you'll have to remind me the name or speak the name, like the Facebook group you guys have. What is it?
Yeah, the storyteller Facebook
Uh,
group. Yeah,
yeah,
which is great. And so usually when I tell people, like, if you have a technical question, like, go to the support team, right? If you have like a workflow question or like a how to sell question that's like more of a peer-to-peer photographer to photographer question, then the storyteller group is great. But the easiest thing is just either the website or in the program, you go to the help menu. There's searchable manuals, video tutorials. But one thing I always tell people, we have been creating blogs and manuals since like 2012 or something, like forever. So we have amazing SEO. So if you just Google Fundy how to and then your question,
yeah, you're gonna
like
find
the
it.
answer is going to be the first one. It's great.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, and I will back that up, because you guys have, like, some great tech. Even if you do put a technical question in the storybook or
Yeah.
storyteller group, it ends up being a ticket that you
Yeah, yeah.
guys create for
Well, a
us.
lot of times people are like, I can't log in. They post to the storyteller group, and it's like, we can't really help you because it's like secret information. We're like, oh, well, your password is this in the comment section of
Yeah,
Facebook,
no,
right?
no, totally. But
That
what I
doesn't
was
help
saying is,
anybody.
like, I love that you have, like, your staff, or whoever's in there is like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. And then before I know it, I have like a ticket email that's coming through. I'm like, I didn't create a ticket; they created it for me
Yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah,
put
yeah.
something in the
They
storyteller group.
preempt the conversation.
No, it's awesome. And there's some great people in that group that are very helpful.
Yeah.
And, generally speaking of like, we talked about Jason. Jason's really good at like, hey, if I
Yep.
have a question or something like that, he'll chime in. And then we've done some one-on-one chats online and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a great way to be able to get help when it comes to that kind of stuff. But the nice thing about it is like what we keep going back to, and I'll keep going back to is if you're somewhat technical, you don't have to be like a technical genius to use Fundy. Most people could probably pick it up pretty quickly. The biggest advice I would give from my standpoint is don't let yourself get overwhelmed with all the features. Focus on some of the features and then just kind of build
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
there.
Just do first time using it, just use the automation to get yourself going, and then you learn little by little. It's one of those, it's, we tried to design it with kind of the same philosophy as Lightroom. Like Lightroom, you can import your raw photos and change your white balance and exposure and kind of
Yeah, yeah,
get going pretty quickly. But then you can also use it for 10 years and find new features,
yeah, totally.
right? You're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that.
Totally. Yeah,
I've
the possibilities
every
are endless. But just try not to go to the endless possibilities when you're first
exactly.
starting
Yeah. Every once
out.
in a while, I'll get like a text from an ambassador or a message or something like, hey, feature request. I'd like to be able to do this. And I'll message back. Yeah, we added that 3 years ago. This is,
You could already do
this
that.
is what, they're like,
Nice.
really? Like, yeah.
Nice. Nice. So like I know we had talked about a couple of features that you guys are talking about, like
Yep.
improving on or making
Mhm.
available within Fundy. What
Yep.
are some of the things that people could look forward to that you guys have been working on or possibly going to be doing in the future?
Yeah. So within the next few weeks, we'll have slideshow uploads coming. And then um, towards the end of summer, early fall, we'll have beat matching dynamic slideshows
Okay.
coming that's more from a marketing standpoint. So those would be perfect for your seniors. Once we have that beat matching, when you export a slideshow into a movie file, currently you can export it horizontal, but we're going to make some social media friendly sizes, your 6:19, 4:5 ratios for social media. So that'll be really cool.
So
And
let me
then,
stop you with that
yeah,
question. I got a
yeah,
question with that because one
yeah,
of the biggest issues that most people have and I'm sure somebody's going to be asking this question
yeah,
is when you're doing that kind of 16 or 9 by 16 social media thing from a slideshow,
yeah.
how is Fundy going to take into consideration putting the subject actually in the photo if it's a
So if it's a horizontal, yeah. So what for those slideshows from the desktop, we will just constrain the photo, right? So horizontal photos will have, blank
okay, so you're not
background
going to
color on
fill
the top
you're
and the
not
bottom.
filling the space.
We're not going to fill the space because we're not a dedicated slideshow tool. And in order to do that, you would have to review every photo
No, I
in the
totally get it.
slideshow,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I
Right.
was just wondering
Yeah.
if there was a way
Yeah.
you
So
guys
we're
are
gonna
doing it.
we're gonna constrain, letterbox it, so to speak,
If I
with the
wanted to do a
background.
slideshow though, and take those horizontal photos, will I have the ability in that slideshow feature to be able to like make them still full frame 9 by 16, or will it just be that?
Not at first pass.
Okay,
Not at first pass. Yeah, because yeah, we won't be doing that at first pass.
no, that's cool.
Maybe eventually. And then currently we're currently we're building out a way to process payments through Stripe right in the program. So you can hook your Stripe account up there so you can process payments right in the program, or be able to
Okay.
send off invoices to your clients that they can pay online.
Nice, nice. That's a
Yeah.
nice feature to have it all in one. So like we
Yep.
use invoicing outside of our stuff, and it works,
Yep.
but it's nice to have the stuff
Yeah,
inside
yeah,
of
yeah.
it.
So just kind of bringing, I'm a big fan of kind of trying to bring as much under one umbrella for you as possible.
Okay. So, I love the fact that just in the short period of time that I've really, I'm embarrassed to say I've been a
Yeah.
Fundy user for 5 or 6 years, like a Fundy subscriber. Let me put it
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've been paying for your service for 5 or 6 years, but we only used it for album design. So we would have people select the photos
Yep.
using our previous tool, and then we would do the final edits and then import it into Fundy and do the album design. What's great and what's great about Fundy too is like you can, if you want to do the album design with the client right then and there during the sales session, you can, and you can finalize it and get their, this is the proof, and
Yeah.
you're like, hey, it's good. Even if you don't do edits before you come in and do your final edits, like talk to us about that a little bit. You know, if I want to do
Oh,
the
like,
final edits
yeah.
after the album design during the sales session because I haven't
Yep.
done them before the sales session.
Yeah. So, a lot of times you want to do your basic edits, but you don't
Yes.
want to do the final edits until the client has actually purchased that photo in print. Because, right, otherwise you're just doing all this extra work for
Yeah,
nothing,
do 100
basically.
photos and edit all of them, and they only
Yep.
buy 30.
Yep. Yep. So we have a number of tools where um, in Fundy Designer under the images menu item, we have a number of ways to allow you to edit photos outside of Fundy Designer and then resync them for final ordering and export of the album. So one of the tools is you can create a copy list for Lightroom, and it will make a list that you can then paste into the Lightroom search bar, and it will find only those photos. So then you can go in and re-edit in Lightroom, and then re-export those JPEGs as JPEGs. And then you can even open up those JPEGs in Photoshop or whatever you want to do and re-edit them. And as long as the file name stays the same, the file name has to be stay the same because we're not we're not magicians. Uh, then under the images menu, you just choose resync photos and you point it to the new folder, the edited images, and then it will resync with those newly edited images, and then you can
Yeah,
export.
and then you don't have to go back and I mean, some people could do this, but like you don't have to go back and have them re-approve the album because you've already
Yeah.
designed the album. You're just
Yep.
going to do the final
Yep.
edits. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a really cool tool to be able to do. I did have somebody ask me this: is this just something like and it's not something for you to think about. It's just an
Yeah.
FYI for people that are
Yeah.
listening. You know, you don't have to put those files back into the original folder where they came
No.
from. You put them into their own folder and then
Yeah.
resync that folder, and it just
Yep.
finds the photos that are in the resynced
Yeah.
folder, even though you might have 100 photos in your original file
Yep.
and you only have 40 in your final edits. It's just
Yep.
going to find those 40 files and not
It
screw
is.
up
Yep.
things with the
And
60.
and it's smart. Let's say you have 80 photos in the album, but you only want to retouch 10 of the photos because they're the bride close-ups or whatever. Um, you point it to the new folder. If there's only 10, all it's going to do is replace those 10, and then the other 70, it's going to know that they're in the old folder,
So
which is really cool. Yeah. It basically, I know that sounds complicated, but basically
it's not.
you don't have to overthink it. The program's going to think for you
Yeah,
and
it
take
is
care of
so
your
easy.
mistakes.
As long as you don't change the name, like Andrew says,
Yeah.
you will just hit that resync button. It's like a
Yeah.
snap of the fingers, and it's back to all the things are changed.
Yeah.
But I want to go a little step further here. Like we've been talking a lot about all this design that's in the program and everything, but what we haven't touched on is now I've designed it in the program.
Yeah.
What do I do with it there? Like I want to go and send it off to print and all that stuff.
Yeah. So
And
we
why is
have,
Fundy unique in that
yeah,
regard?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
So
and very easy to use.
yeah, for our two main partners are Graphy Studio and Miller's Lab. You can click a button and basically just order directly through the portal, so you don't have to do anything. We do support, I think it's 160 labs worldwide now. So, if you're Miller's or Graphy, you can order directly through the program, which is super handy. Um, One thing to be careful with Miller, sometimes we'll get someone that had ordered a Miller's album direct, and then they'll contact support like 2 days later and be like, "Hey, so I want to change my cover from the brown leather to the black leather." And we're like, "Your album is already shipped. Like you have to be careful with Miller's. Like once that album hits the server,
Yeah,
like man,
Miller's goes really
it's
fast.
it's print like we're like it actually might be at your front door. You go outside and check.
Nice.
Um, but then for other labs, you just hit the export button and it exports the spreads, and then you submit the order. Now, one thing that's really cool with the wall art, and I did this because I've made this mistake many times, and I know that you've probably made it many times because everybody has, is when you're like, let's say you have a wall collection, you know, you've got the 20 by 30 and a couple 11 by 14s or whatever those
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
So when you export from wall art uh, or order direct, we do bicubic upsizing and downsizing, right? So you don't have to worry about like going into Photoshop and making sure the file's the right size or anything like that. In addition, when we export the files for print for wall art, we rename the files to be the size. So it says like, so the new file name is canvas 11 by 14. So
Yeah.
that when you go to order, you're like, oh, this one's 11 by 14. So you don't make that mistake. Because we've all made that mistake before where we're like, the order comes in and you're like, this is supposed to be the big one and this is supposed to be the small one.
No, totally.
Yep.
No, it's
I
great.
guess I've got a new sample that I don't want and I'm out $200.
Nice. Well, and talk through collages, similar to the album design. One of the things that I
Yeah.
love about the collages, talk through that when it comes to going to print.
Yeah, so one of the things we call them composites because we have a
Sorry,
the ability to
composites,
debate, which
collages.
is
To me, it's
everybody
interchangeable.
calls them the same thing. Yeah, yeah. But basically, one thing to remember is that, you know, and when you're designing an album, and that's another thing too, is like in the album design, you can also design studio magazines,
Nice.
right? So, you know, we support graphics and text and color blocks and all of that stuff. And uh, whether it be a card or a canvas, everything is just a blank slate that you can design on. So if you have a canvas, you can open up that canvas and you can throw 9 images on it, and you can make sure they're exactly square with certain spacing. And, you know, you could put a black stroke around the edges and fundamentally design whatever you want.
Right.
And then, uh, as with everything, you can save that as a template and reuse it.
Yeah, no, it's
Right.
and it's really cool because you can export that. So it used to be on our workflow, we would have whatever we were designing in, show
Hmm.
them what it's like, edit the photos, do the final design in Photoshop, or would you had to have a designed thing in Photoshop,
Oh, that's
and
no
then
fun.
export it through. But where for you with Fundy, what's nice is like you can just edit the photos, re-import the photos, just like you were talking with the albums,
Yeah.
and then export the final design, and it's its own JPEG that you just send off to
Yeah.
your lab. And if your lab is the two that you mentioned, Miller's or Graphy, you just go straight to them. You don't even have to
Yeah.
do a download and then re-import. It's funny. I just opened up my Fundy because I wanted to look at the magazine thing while we were here,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
got an update 11.2.2.
We just pushed out a fix. There was a minor bug when you're moving multiple spreads around, so we just pushed that update out
No, and that's a cool
this
thing too
morning.
that you guys just started. That was you just did that 2 weeks ago or something like that, where you can move design layouts around in your album, where it used to be
Yep.
you could just move one page. Now you can
Yeah,
move
yeah.
like 4 or 5 pages. It's a
Select
pretty
them
cool
all, move them at
feature.
the same time. Yeah.
But all that to be said, like as you guys are probably hearing here, is Bundy's always making changes for the better when it comes to what we do as photographers, and they truly are here to support what we're doing, help us make better sales, that 50K more a year,
Yeah, yeah.
and everything. And when you're doing in-person sales, if you've never done it before, I can speak from experience, like having a tool, like I mean, obviously Fundy is the tool of choice that we're talking here, but having a tool of some sort that you can show people stuff is so valuable, right? So you have to have that, or you're not going to like you said, you have to show what you want to sell. If you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
show it, then nobody's going to buy it. And I use the example of what I had, like the one example, two examples that I shared on this is the wall art. It's like we changed the size right then and there, and now I went from a blank sale to a blank sale, which was more because I
Yeah.
was able to show them like, yeah, that's going to be kind of small on your wall.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So let me
Yeah.
ask, this is a golden
Mhm.
question that I've had
Yeah.
questions to, and I'm sure other photographers ask the same kind of thing, and you probably have a better insight to it. Over when I started my business, I started during COVID, and
Hmm.
how things transpire. We did shoot and sell in studio and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but then for a variety of reasons, we went to Zoom sales, where a lot of
Yeah.
people, I think, during COVID went to Zoom sales, and there was a lot of pushback from photographers that had done in-person sales forever go, oh, your sales are going to be crap and all that
Hmm.
stuff, doing it through Zoom. You've probably seen people doing a little bit of both or
Yeah.
one or the other. Have you seen, or what's your take on people that are doing Zoom versus in person, traditional in person, like in the studio or in home or whatever, when it comes to the actual sale itself?
That's a really good question. I was like you. I thought that the sales would go the amount you were able to sell for would go down with a Zoom appointment compared to in person. But that doesn't seem to be the case.
Mine went up,
Everybody I
you know,
talk
but
to,
mine fluctuate, but like anything, but mine went up
yeah,
from when I went to doing Zoom sales.
that's the thing. I thought they were going to go down. If anything, they stayed the same or they've increased. I've talked to a number of people that their sales actually increased over Zoom compared to in person, which I find crazy. Like I don't know why that's the case, but who cares why?
Right, right.
It's easier. I do think, I think the fundamental answer is that it's definitely not going to hurt you to do them over Zoom. And then I think it's just going to depend on the client. I think we're still seeing the tail end of where people are perfectly happy to do everything through Zoom, but I also feel like there is a little bit of a want from clients to like actually like be around other humans. Like, because so many people are working from home, they're like, I need to see a human. I'm gonna come in to view my photos.
No, I get that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the positive. So and I think when you're listening to this, my advice to you as a photographer is take what you're doing as in your business and make it fit with what you're doing. Because
Yeah.
if you're in a business like mine, I live in Houston, and we get people that drive an hour 20 minutes to come to a session with us.
Yeah.
If I was going to do in-person sales after, like, later, that's a real pain in the butt for
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
client to
Yeah.
come back and
Yeah.
drive
And they
all
don't
that
want to do
way to do it
that.
in
Yeah.
person. And so it became it became twofold. The other side of it for us was we're volume for a lot of
Hmm.
aspects of our studio. And when you're doing volume, and especially majority of your sessions are on the weekend, I wanted to pack as many sessions on the weekends as I
Yeah.
could. And if I was doing shoot and sell, I could only do half of the number of
Hmm.
sessions.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason why we moved. But but if you're wanting to have more of that higher end, I mean, not that my stuff's not higher end, but if you want to have a higher, better, like much more like personal, stuff with your clients, then I mean, maybe the in-person stuff is, but you have to take all those things into consideration. If your clients are
Yeah.
driving an hour to your session, do you really want them to come back another hour?
Yeah.
And,
And
and,
I
and
know some of our top producers that use Fundy Designer, they're making well over 200K a year just in album and print sales, do everything over Zoom also, right?
yeah,
And they're super high end people. So I think it's just personal preference at this point. Like just do whatever you want to do because
well,
you're
and I
going to be
think Zoom
successful
too is
either way.
very convenient for people.
Yeah.
It's just like I can schedule stuff at times that are way different than, like, I do most of my stuff now in my home office, which is
Yeah.
nice because I can do a Zoom sale and then go eat dinner right after I get
Yeah.
done. Or if I was
Exactly.
doing
Yeah.
an in-person sale at the studio, I'd have to then close up shop. It takes me another 30 minutes to get
Yeah.
home or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you got
um,
to wear pants.
I am wearing nice shorts right now, so but I have had times where I do Zooms and I'm just wearing gym shorts and a nice
Yep.
shirt. But no, you just gotta be careful not to stand up during those
Yep.
Zooms.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to hear your perspective because you do. I mean, you talk to people that are doing this all the
Yeah.
time and
Yeah.
everything. Do you find that, like, where are the majority of your clients that coming from that use Fundy? Is it all over the board, or is it majority coming from one side, like weddings or seniors or port? Is it just kind of
So
everywhere?
yeah, so we don't track industry very specifically. I think probably it used to be much higher on the wedding side because we used to be just fundamentally album design. I think it's getting close to even. And also I think that more photographers are doing weddings and portraits, right? Well, that says either it's a portrait studio only, but people who are only shooting weddings before, a lot of them have added portraits, right? So it's a hybrid. It's probably half and half. That said, we over think it's 40 to 45% of our market is overseas outside of the US. And other than Australia and Canada, like much of mainland Europe is wedding only. There just isn't a big portrait market.
Mhm.
Um, the type that we have in the US and Australia, New Zealand, Canada, with portrait sales with wall art sales. Um, but yeah, I think it's pretty even now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I looking at the tool itself, it's just like it can be with anything.
Yep.
I'm actually having another interview with somebody tomorrow, and their expertise is wall art sales, and it's just like if you're just doing wall art, Fundy's perfect for that. You don't have to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
albums, even though
Yeah.
that's where that kind of got its start
Yeah.
and
And
everything.
I for wall art, like for wall art sales, like if your main thing is selling wall art and you sell these big wall art collections, the easiest thing in the world is just to say, would you like to put the rest of the photos in an album?
Totally.
Right? Because
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
clients will be like, yeah, and then you click a button and then you've got an 8x8 album or whatever. Like it's just a little bump sale on the end of the
No,
wall art.
I 100% agree. Like it's so easy to just say, hey, I mean, you picked out four pieces for your wall art. Because like when I first started, I just like, hey, we do a matching digital thing. If you
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
photos, you get, whatever you purchase,
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
the photos with. And I always felt like, man, I don't feel it's fair for a person that's buying a four photo collection for $5,000. They're only getting four photos,
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started moving towards, hey, if you buy that collection, we're going to throw in, 20 digitals or something like that.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
get, some extra digitals that you loved and all that stuff. And then I, played it by, hey, this is how many they
Yeah.
have that I feel comfortable with that number. I'm going to go with it, or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's so true that, you can get to the end. And if they have those 20 photos and they do that four photo collection, instead of doing what I've just described is like, hey, for another, $600 or whatever it is, it's yes, it sounds small, but you just made money off of those
Yep.
20 photos, putting them in a little album because an album's not going to cost you $600 or
Yep.
shouldn't,
Yep.
unless you're going with like the diamond laced album or something.
Yeah.
But but
And
yeah, that's a
one
great
thing,
piece of advice there.
yeah, and one thing, always like never forget to do is at the end of the sale, you just ask the clients, so with the album, do you need any more copies for parents or grandparents or anybody?
Yeah, yeah. If you have a graphy studio, you can do the parent
Super
albums.
like super simple question, right? And they're like, oh, actually, yes, we do.
Yeah, and
Right. And that's just an extra click.
no, yeah, and like Ben Conley was talking about that too, and most places usually have sales, like your printers usually have sales on those smaller albums or something, and
Yep.
you're like, bam, you make a little bit more. But no, this has all been great. I hope everybody that's listening can understand the importance of having tools like this in your bag, especially tools like Fundy that can really take what you're doing to another level, and it's impressive to clients. I feel like they don't say it so much, but
Hmm.
you can tell, that they're like, oh my gosh, this is not what I expected. And I get people that go, well, can I just get an online gallery and then you send me an online gallery and I pick
Yeah.
out the photos? We don't do that, and we have reasons why. But once they get into doing the in-person sale through Fundy or whatever, they then go, okay, now it makes sense why
Yeah.
I just don't get a
Yeah, I get
gal.
this.
Like,
Yeah.
because it's like if I was going to have sell you wall art, how am I supposed to show you what that wall art looks like if I just send you a gallery, you
Yeah.
know? So, but yeah, I mean, it's been awesome having you here, Andrew. Thanks so much for giving me the time. I know you mentioned a couple of things, and I'll put these in the show notes. But where could people find you, find Fundy? Like, if they want to, try Fundy out, like, tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about how somebody could go about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy. Go to fundydesigner.com, download the trial, design something. It's going to take you 4 minutes, you know. If you want to learn more about how to make more money in photography, the 50kextra.com website, it's just a blog post step by step, and then, also, reaching out to people like you that help other photographers learn how to, create a sustainable business model. And then easiest place to find me or the company's the Storyteller group on Facebook. I think I keep maxing out on friends on Facebook, so I don't know if you'll be able to grab me. Um,
Nice. No, yes, and the Storyteller is a great place, and Andrew's very active in that. So it's just
yeah,
not like
yeah, I'm in there.
you're gonna be in there and it's just gonna be a bunch of people. Like I think you respond mostly to my posts before anybody else has a chance, and that's pretty cool because you're the man. You're like this is your business. You know, you can
Yeah,
sit back, relax, and let your people do all the work, but you're
yeah.
actually still actively
Well,
involved.
yeah, and we have the staff goes in there and comments, and sometimes the staff comments is me, so people thinks it's me,
Oh,
even though
okay,
it's
there you
not
go.
me. Um, but
Well, the lesson learned. Okay, maybe
yeah,
I take that back.
but
I'm just joking.
our yeah, but kind of our ethos is if somebody asks a question and we know that our response is going to like help other people understand like how to use the tool better, that's kind of like how we view it,
Yeah, no,
you
totally.
know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's great. Like that group, even if you're not ready to pull the trigger on Fundy and like really try it out or anything, that storyteller group's a great place to go to kind of get a feel of what Fundy's about before
Yeah.
you go there because it's pretty active group, people asking a lot of great questions, and you got some really big name people that I sometimes see that are like, oh, okay, cool, they're in this group.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, there's yeah, yeah.
and you're
Yeah,
starting to post a lot of the videos and stuff of the people that are like the Jasons of the world and
yeah,
stuff that
yeah.
hey, this is how I use it. This is how it's been great for my business and all that stuff. And some of the people that I see on there, I'm like, oh, I've been following that person for years. That's cool.
We've been
you know?
we've been very fortunate. I think I always like check and go through. I think of the camera ambassadors, whether it be Sony, Canon,
Yeah,
Nikon,
yeah, yeah,
Fuji,
yeah.
whatever, of the camera ambassadors that are wedding and portrait photographers, I think about 85 to 90% of them use Funny Designer. So we've been very fortunate to
Nice.
have
That's
that
awesome.
market saturation.
That's awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to interview you. Appreciate you giving us the time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and learning a little bit more about Fundy. And I hope some people take some lessons out of this and can grow their business using your platform.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
We'll talk to you later, bud.
Okay, talk to you later.